Welcome. So nice to see so many faces joining this Zoom call today. And we're delighted that you're going to be learning more about Opportunity's digital financial services in this era of the COVID pandemic. My name is Barbara Lupient, and like you, I am a supporter, a governor of Opportunity. Over the years, I've had the true honor of serving on the boards of Nicaragua, Australia, the United States, and the Global Board. And like you, I came to Opportunity because I felt that it answered a need in the world and a need that I was being called to answer. So it's been a pretty wonderful journey for me, as I'm sure it has been for you. But before we get into today's really interesting guests, please join me in prayer. Dear Father of all, we come together today as your children and thank you for your many blessings. We would ask that you especially bless all of us with your guidance and your peace during these times of uncertainty, knowing full well that so many of your children around the world are suffering far more than most can imagine. Please, Lord, open our eyes, ears, minds, and hearts so we can participate in this group and leave with a greater understanding of how we might better serve as your hands and feet in this world. We ask all in your name, amen. It's really wonderful to see so many members of the Opportunity family here today. Thank you to all the governors. Thank you to all the board members. Just thank you to the Ambassadors Council, everybody who has been able to participate today. Just thank you. I really believe that this time together will be fruitful for all of us. Now, in our time together today, we'll hear from our CEO, Atul Tandon, as well as Rosa Wang, Global Director of Digital Financial Services, meeting with us from UK, and Kwaku Acheampong from Ghana. He works with our clients in Ghana as the head of financial inclusion and enterprise development for Sanapi Abu Savings and Loan. And together with them, we're going to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on our digital financial services, DFS, during this critical time. And after that, we will be moving into an open Q&A with you. And during the call, you can ask a question by clicking on the chat at the bottom of the Zoom. And then either typing in your question or just type, I have a question, if you'd prefer to be called live on Q&A. Now for today's topic, how our clients are using technology to help weather the storm of COVID-19. Let's jump right in, please. These are reports from the field. Kwaku, starting with our guest from Ghana, we want to first hear how your community has been impacted by the coronavirus, please.
Okay, so I must say that the coronavirus impact actually really started in Ghana when the government imposed a ban on restrictions from the 16th of March. So these restrictions were several levels, included border closures, ban on gatherings, school closures, and a 3-week lockdown actually in the 2 major cities, Accra and Kumasi. I would like to talk about the impact in 2 different segments, particularly to schools and to businesses. On schools particularly, I must say it is quite difficult for the young little school child who is unable to attend school now. I remember very well yesterday, my little girl who's just 3 years old asking me, wanting to speak to her school teacher. She finds it very difficult that for so long she's not been able to go to see her teacher. So I finally had to call the teacher so that they speak, that calmed her down. But what I'm trying to drive home at is that it is really difficult on, so many lives, even including the younger ones. So in Ghana, for instance, many of the schools have actually made efforts at doing e-learning because the children are at home. Our environment that we find ourselves is very challenged with limited internet connectivity. E-learning is very, very challenging now for most schools. So virtually what is happening is that schools are closed for so long a time. This been 2, 3, almost 3 months now. God knows when we would have the leeway of going back to school. For the ordinary parents, they have to go back to work. How do they leave their children back home? Who takes care of them? It is very challenging for the ordinary working mother to go back to his work duties, even though the restrictions are eased for work these days. My institution, Snapiaba Savings and Loans, for a very long time has had a very big portfolio of school owners. So we call it the Edu Finance loans. And we have seen in April that majority of these school owners have really struggled, and they have actually come in renegotiating or probably asking for us to reschedule their loans because they are not able to repay at the time that is falling due. Most of these school owners, I must say, have already had challenges paying their teachers, the salaries of their teachers. They've actually had so many challenges. Some have even laid off some of these teachers. So you can imagine, in Ghana, one person actually feeds an average of about 5 homes, 5 mouths in their home. So a loss of a job can be very, very serious when it happens. So these are the hard times that the schools are going through. For the businesses, the ordinary business on the street is really struggling. You can see that their daily sales have really gone very, very down. I must say that in Ghana, most businesses usually kick off around the April, between March and April, where we have the Easter festivities and the Muslim festival, the Eid al-Fitr festival coming up. Most people would usually produce or stock up in anticipation of these activities so that they can actually cash in. But here is the case that the Easter and the Eid al-Fitr, the Muslim festival, more or less came as an ordinary day. So it has really cast a huge shadow on the projections for the year for most of these ordinary businesses. The border closures have really affected a lot of businesses who were expectant of, wares and supplies from the foreign markets. Even farmers are are affected to the level that some of them relied on the foreign market to get fertilizers, to get some agrochemicals, to actually cultivate and grow their crops. These are no longer coming because of COVID-19. Some manufacturing plants were expectant of supplies to actually go into full-scale production as the year actually gears into speed. But because of COVID, they are unable to go and get these materials. Stocks, supplies are running out very fast. Some shops have already started even thinking about closing shop because their shops are running dry. For services such as people who, the normal tailor, let's say the normal seamstress, nobody is really coming to sew because there is no occasion, there is no church, there is no public gathering out there. So all these businesses are really, really suffering. The transport services are also suffering. For instance, they are advised to practice social distancing and spacing in their even in their very taxis and their commercial vehicles. So the number of people they could actually take have reduced, and nobody's really going anywhere. So it's really affecting their sales as well. So all in all, it really has affected both the business side, both the social side of things, and it's really keeps on affecting communities. We really hope and pray that COVID would be a thing of the past soon, or it will subside soon, so that we can have business as usual.
Thank you, Kwaku. I appreciate that, and it helps us understand better what's going on in Ghana. Rosa, understanding the experience that Kwaku has just shared is quite common across many of the areas where we work. Can you tell us what you're seeing on a global scale? Are clients using digital services more, less, or in any way differently?
Yes, thank you, Barbara. And I think the experiences that Kwaku was alluding to in Ghana has been very much what we have seen in the other markets where we're operating. I think we are seeing that business disruption as well as a dramatic shift, I think, for everyone in terms of a new way of doing things. And that's been a really interesting time for digital and for digital financial services. And what do I mean when I say digital services? Well, basically, many of you will know for the past decade or so at Opportunity, we've been working to shift our clients from what is seen as more of a manual or an in-person or maybe a building-based or branch and infrastructure-based kind of interaction into one where the client has more autonomy and can engage on their own at a time in which they choose. And in Africa, we're doing this through the mobile cell phone. Most of the clients will by now have a basic or a feature phone. So we're shifting people to digital by going to the phone. In India, where we have gender issues that are more severe than we have in most places in the world, many of our clients do not have phones yet, and probably in the foreseeable future will still not have the very basic phone. But what we mean by digital is to leverage the biometric system and the national ID project that has gone on in India. And by doing so, to try to give clients a way in which they can engage in their financial services, engage with their accounts, and engage with each other through these means of the phone or through the biometric identification. To date, just to give you some numbers, we have 5.5 million clients that can access these accounts digitally. And the interesting part is that through the past couple of months, we are still seeing registrations for these services increase. So despite the fact that there have been very substantial disruptions, as Kwaku has mentioned, the registrations have increased. We've also seen people attempting, as they are unable perhaps to go to a physical branch, or if they see many of the markets or big shopping areas closed down, we've seen people increase some activities by using, particularly on the phone. So in Africa, let me just give a couple of examples. So airtime, which they can just purchase by the phone. We've seen an increase in the use of using that so that they can purchase more minutes and do so. Again, they're not having to visit anyone. They can just do so electronically with the device in their hand. We also have a project which is known as interactive voice response. And these are a series of voice messages that are done in the local dialect of the client. And so in their own dialect, we're sending a series of messages. I think Kwaku is going to tell us a bit more about how they're doing this at Sinapi. But the encouraging thing is that we had run a series of these interactive voice response sort of interventions in the last couple of years. And the ones that we've started in the last couple of months, we've actually seen greater participation. More people are picking up the messages, more people are listening for longer towards the end, and then more people are seeking out more information. So we allow them to say, if you want to hear part 2 of the message, or if you want to learn more, you can press 1. Increasing percentage of clients are moving forward with that. So I think we're seeing that clients are finding digital in these challenging times. Digital is a way in which they can continue to stay engaged both with our partner institutions and to learn more about financial services that are available or other services that are available. And just quickly, I wanted to say that the observation that I've had overall is that I've been quite encouraged at the resilience that the clients have exhibited. We've seen certainly incomes and cash flow has been hit severely, and that's been across the board. But we've not seen a panic for people to come and rush and take their savings out. We've actually seen only modest withdrawals. And I think that what we're observing is, again, a resiliency on the part of our clients, and that this has sort of been practiced in many ways, some disruption to the marketplace, substantial disruption. So in Africa, we had Ebola that allowed some of the countries to practice things like community contact tracing and other things that's been established. And in India, a couple of years ago, when they had a big program of demonetization or the canceling of the currency, this gave the clients, again, a resiliency of how you deal with circumstances of this disruption, and gave our partners on the ground a chance to put in some emergency measures. And we've seen them act in a very, very dynamic fashion to address this now.
Rosa, you shared a lot of really positive developments, and that's helpful for us in understanding. Now, Kwaku, how are our teams in the field educating and supporting our clients at this time?
Sure, thank you very much, Barbara. Just before I go into the how, Rosa talked about our cell-phone banking application. Just a sentence to introduce you all to it. So last year, 2019, Snappy actually built a unique, if I call it unique because I think it is, a DFS platform. Basically that it's helping a lot of our customers to eliminate the barriers to access. It's offering a unique benefit to clients to transparency. It's offering them so much convenience. It's giving them the backed security, and it's even actually offered at a very cheap cost. This is actually offered on a USSD platform, meaning that anybody with a basic phone can actually access this, and you no need for a smartphone or anything of the sort. So this has been in operation since 2019. So what we have done in recent times is to leverage a lot on this technology that we had built. So right from the beginning of March, what we try to do is actually help and support a number of our clients sign on to this particular platform. So we have a good sales force, we call them mobile bankers, that we use to do, these are physical contact, savings collections. So we use the same sales force to actually get a number of our customers on board the digital platform. So from March, in anticipation of a government lockdown, we actually got a number of our customers registered onto the platform. We got this done as quickly as we could. And we also tried to launch multiple communication campaigns throughout this period. So we were using text messaging, the normal SMS. We're using social media messaging, which has a lot of graphics to actually inform the customers on some health and even some hygiene things as we go through the COVID. We also use what we call the IVR, just like Rosa talked about, the interactive voice messaging. So this interactive voice messaging that we deployed actually provides the privilege to the customer to hear some education in their preferred dialect. So this was actually offered in quite a number, I think 5 different dialects. Then it actually gave the customers to choose from these different languages, the one that is best suited to them. And it actually had messages that were coming to the clients spanning from issues on health, issues on COVID-19 awareness, and it was also providing education on how these customers could use our digital service. So this was what we did with the communication campaign. Another thing that we also did to help customers, that the field team did to help customers, we also absorbed some fees that were associated with transferring money from the client's account, from clients into their account here at Snappy. So we realized that that is a major barrier because if clients is actually transacting on the DFS platform with exorbitant charges, it actually puts them off to do these transactions. So we immediately met as management and we absorbed these charges actually charged by the telecommunication companies. Snappy absorbed these charges so that customers could experience actually performing these transactions without any fees or charges. Again, we also opened up the limits at which customers could also transact. We realized that because of COVID, there are certain customers who could not come to the banking halls, who feared for their own safety. So we actually put in an adjustment on the limits amount of money that they could push over the digital platforms, which we believe also helped the customers in these times. With all these efforts in place, we realized at the end of April from the numbers that these have actually really yielded results, because the transactions actually grew by 21% between the March figures and the April figures. Then again, I want to mention that Snappy is also working on what we call a call center, which can remotely provide support to the clients, so that the clients in the comfort of their homes can get some customer service support in these hard times.
Thank you. Now, Rosa, I recall hearing about this in other areas. Are there other areas where we have call centers up in other communities?
Yes, in all of our partners, we're encouraging them to not just have a call center, all of them have basic call capabilities, but also to upgrade those services and really extend them. I think the key two principles behind this are, and this predates COVID substantially, but as you go on the digital journey, is that we want to increase the engagement with the client, but to increase digital engagement. So things like IVR, things like having a call center available. And then the other side of the call center, which is that you want to increase the ability to give good service. So good client service, and in particular service resolution. So what do you do when something has gone wrong? So someone has forgotten their PIN or they need it reset. How are they able to engage in such a way? And we've encouraged our partners to make the call center as user-friendly as possible. So clients might have a toll-free number or a short code, like just a 3 to 5 digit code instead of a 10-digit code, making it much easier for them to reach. And then we also have put in place metrics and KPIs so they can monitor the success of the call center and how it's contributing. And importantly, we have all of the data that's collected on all of the mobile systems is gender disaggregated. So we can see, are women subscribing to the services? Is there a lag? Is there something that we need to do more with the staff education process or with the outreach process to try to make sure that we do not have large gender gaps there? The other thing that I think we try to do is to try to reach out to the client and fundamentally see how is it they can receive the funds that they are entitled to. In India, let me just give an example of a woman named Rani, who is from the state of Bihar, and here near Nalanda, which is actually, if you've had the chance to go there or if you enjoy reading about religious history, this is one of the centers of Buddhism. But it's also one of the poorest areas of the country in India. And it's also one of the areas where I think the patriarchal practices that go there are some of the most severe that exist in the country. And we found when we went there, a large percentage of women had never had the chance to go to school. So they were not able to read or write. And because of that, even though they might have had welfare benefits or old age pensions or something, which they were entitled to, they had not been collecting them, or they could only collect them if a relative were able to take them, say, maybe only every 2 or 3 months, to be able to go to a bank or a financial institution to be able to get their funds. And what we've done there is to launch a system of agents, or in other words, community-based people that can assist with this, and that's connected to the entire system where the woman is registered based on her thumbprint. So despite the fact that she can't read, she can still get access and still get access to the funds that she's entitled to. And all of this has continued on. What we found is there's a need to increase the number of women as agents so that they're there to help the other women. And we found that this fundamentally reshapes the way in which these women that previously did not have easy access to the services can get much better service and assistance from these agents.
Rosa, as a follow-up to that, now how are you supporting our partners during this time?
So our goal during this time is to make sure that the partners keep afloat so that they can continue to serve customers in both the short term and the long term. We also are looking at ways in which the agents that I mentioned, that they can continue to do their work and give the customer service in that direct sort of last mile delivery to the client. And in some cases, it's a bit of a challenge because some agents were working outside of a shop. And while financial services are deemed as essential and so kept open, some shops were deemed as non-essential, and so those were closed. And so we've had to go and see, can we help the agent perhaps relocate, or can we inform the clients either through like a voice message or a text message of where other agents might be located, where they could go to. But it's really a way of just making sure as much as possible that the partners help the agents to stay open and to make sure that the partners stay afloat in this critical time.
And how successful have you been in that endeavor, Rosa?
Well, we've been looking at it, I would say, you know, we definitely have seen, I've been encouraged that the registrations for these systems, both in India and Africa, have continued to increase. That was not something we were anticipating. I think we were expecting perhaps a disruption. We've also seen certain select types of transactions, as Kwaku had mentioned, like Sinapi has fared really well, and they've been able to increase on the deposits and through the deposit campaign. And we've also been able to see that things like the transactions on things like the welfare benefits and the old age pensions, those transactions are continuing. I would say where we're seeing the most significant drop off is in terms of the large scale deposits that the merchants would do. And that's largely due to the closures of the big markets. So I think that's been the biggest concern. That's something that we're continuing to keep an eye on. But the agents, many of the agents are continuing to work, and we think that that's an essential part of offering services to our clients.
That is helpful to understand. Now, Atul, I know that you have other questions you'd like to ask Kwaku and Rosa, so I will turn it to you now, please.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you for hosting this, Barbara. We are very, very grateful for your long stewardship with the opportunity of God's call to serve the poor. Thank you. Barbara, I have to start with a story. And you might have heard this before, but you know, we're talking about call centers and virtual access. So you'll recall that my career in banking started in the mid 80s with Citibank in India. And I think this would have been in the summer of 86 or 87, my memory fails me. But our CEO at that time decided, and we had only 4 branches in India, right? Vast country. The biggest competitor had about 6,000. We had 4 branches, scrappy people. Barbara, I used to have full hair at that time, and I was twice my size. So, you know, it goes to say what happens. But our CEO decided, he said, well, you know, we only have 4 branches. The way to get people to access banking is to get them phone access. So some of us were delegated this task of coming up with this solution on how to get phone access to Indians to access their bank accounts. So we had never thought of anything like this. So we looked around, and you know, you had call centers in the US. We decided we're going to copy the call center. Well, there isn't any 1-800 number. All right, so we approached at that time, actually, it used to be the Indian Postal Service that offered that service that could. So the first Indian call center was literally in the cube next to my office with 3 ladies who answered phone calls on a defined basis of 75-minute, work cycles. And I could hear all their conversations for the whole day going on. And little did I know, or we know, that that was now going to yield, now today, just in India alone, millions of call centers, serving the whole planet. And you see that expression in our own world. The reason it grew, and I want to get to Rosa with that, is it was a focus on client service, understanding what clients needed and being present where they were, right? It wasn't some genius banker sitting around. It really was a focus on client service, meeting clients where they are. And I think that's what our team has done. So Rosa, I want you to touch on, you've been a great proponent. In fact, I heard from you first about this before it became now common is the whole concept of high tech is actually preceded by high touch. Your focus on understanding and meeting our clients, the poor of the world, the vulnerable, especially women, where they are, and designing digital services with high touch and then followed by high tech, because our history in technology has been the other way around, right? You only have to look at the software release versions of the major digital giants and see how they work this. So I want you to talk about that a bit. And then, I have a follow-up question as well. So please.
Sure. Sure. Yes. So as you mentioned, our tagline is high touch, high tech. By that, just to deconstruct that, so by the tech, which is, as you say, many corporations, big companies, they will start with that. We mean the state-of-the-art technologies, because so when Kwaku and his colleagues are doing work in Ghana, and they're in Kumasi, they are using state-of-the-art interactive voice technologies. There's a unique platform. There's a way that it monitors all of the calls. It measures the length of it. It measures it. I think they can measure it down to the 10th of a second. We don't have a need to do that. And then creates these nice graphics for us then to be able to monitor. And so that is state-of-the-art, because those are available. But that's what our well-trained, hardworking staff are using. The interface to the client, who may be a market stall holder, she may be a woman who never had the chance to go to school again, and probably is not as interested in terms of how many gadgets and buttons and difficult. What she wants to know is the message relevant to her that she's hearing? Is it, first of all, is it in a language she speaks and understands? Is it relevant to her? And what difference is it going to make in her life? Perhaps something about educating her kids, something about saving money. And then now with COVID, there's also some hygiene and other kinds of things that can be engaged. And that is the part of high touch. So if there's not relevance to our clients' lives, then I think it doesn't matter what the technology is. And the fact that we're living in an ecosystem where the technologies are getting better and better, and frankly, for the work that it's doing, getting cheaper and cheaper. So, the compute power in the phone that everyone has probably in their hand is so much more advanced than anything just a decade ago, or anything just even 5 or 6 years ago. And that is the environment that we're working in. But if we can't find a way to be relevant, and we do that by leveraging the more than 4 decades knowledge that we have of community building, of client outreach, of how important relationships of clients between and among each other are. And that's how we then integrate the two together. One of the reasons we say the high touch first is because the client comes first. Because again, if the client is not activated in order to use this, then the technology just sits in a box. And we've seen a lot of projects where technology sits in boxes. You can see this all over when you go and many of you have gone into the field and see this. You'll see a lot of things that in theory should have worked, but the part that they didn't sort of puzzle out or spend a lot of work and a lot of effort on is not about the technology. It was about how do we get that high touch and how do we get it in the right manner.
Thanks, Rosa. Thank you so much. Kwaku just point to note, he just reminded us when he was talking about his IVR that clients can choose from 1 of 5 languages, dialects. I think that kind of attention to detail and the care for, all right, in a small region within Accra, there are within Ghana, northern Ghana, there are 5 different principal dialects. Let's offer solutions in each of those. I frankly don't think even a decade back people would have thought about that, or 5 years. Even today do. So thank you. I'm going to come back though. You've done similarly, Rosa. You led the effort, and we have to. You've been a real global leader in this, and we are thankful for this. You led the effort in bringing virtual services, digital services to clients' doorsteps, right? With your agent network specifically that you started developing first in India, now in Africa, and even more so with agricultural finance. How do you make digital services available to farmers in remote villages through combining digital access with local agent networks. Could you talk a bit about that? Because you've got both, on the one hand, state-of-the-art digital technology, on the other hand, very much physical, networks of local merchants that you're combining, and how today in COVID-19 that is becoming a real differentiator in making sure people have access to their bank accounts.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is the cornerstone of the work that Opportunity has done is this notion of trust. And trust is essential in terms of, I think most people are very familiar with the formation of the trust groups, which was the original loan. But trust is also important before a person is willing to do something like a transaction. And that is relevant to the woman in the village, whether it's in India. So, when you say, oh, okay, she may not have been to school, but she can get access, so she can go to an agent. Well, who's this agent that she's going to go to? She will only go to someone that she knows will not cheat her, because, it can be obvious that she doesn't read or write. And, she needs to find a trust relationship within that. And so a lot of what we are doing is to partner with other organizations and to work with our partners in terms of supporting trusted parties that are known to our clients. So in India, that would be someone that in the village is sought after because they are highly regarded. They will have had a better education than the clients that they're serving, but they will also speak the local vernacular, the local dialect, and then they're probably known. So it's not someone that just recently moved to the village and people are saying, no, I want to work really hard. Unfortunately, that does not build the trust relationship. And that also extends to the farmers. So we work in cooperation with extension providers, or people that provide ongoing training and other support to the farmers. And through those relationships that are already established, we work as part of the ecosystem of trying to say, okay, how can we reach the person given their circumstance? So again, with the farmers, it's about bringing financial services together with good agriculture practices. With the village woman, it's about saying, how do we use the biometric-based system, so the thumbprint, together with potential training and other things with this trusted woman that she knows and has known for several years. And that, I think, is really the cornerstone of what we're doing. And one of the reasons that I think we've been able to sort of puzzle that out is because at the heart of the success of what we've been doing is ultimately about understanding that notion of trust, and understanding that trust does not come with a fancy device, and you have to have a system. So Kwaku was mentioning they've installed a mobile banking system. One of the things that we've worked with them, and they've done an excellent job, is to make sure that that's reliable, because this is how a person can gain trust in the systems that you have, is to make sure that the reliability is high. And so that notion runs across all of the things that we do, and really has helped us to grow and to expand the number of clients that we're serving.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you so much. And Barbara, I think, what I want to say is that many of you present have walked with us many, many years. You've contributed. What you're seeing here, the kinds of digital and phone services, virtual services we can offer today in the face of probably the largest humanitarian disaster unfolding across the world, make sure that our clients have continued access to their savings and to their loan accounts. You have contributed over many, many years, the large amounts of your time, talent, treasure to make that possible. To make possible that we have global experts and leading thinkers and implementers like Rosa with us, guiding us, and Kwaku and his team, a whole network of bank partners and bankers who are devoted to this task. Now agents in the field, Barbara, who are combined with these, you got high tech, high trust and high touch and high tech, and now local agent relationships, all of that combined, ATMs. These are bank accounts linked to government social benefit programs, millions of them. It really has been quite extraordinary to watch this as I have, now sequestered at our home in Seattle to lead the effort. It's really been quite and I'm deeply thankful to the people here. So with that, Barbara, I'm going to turn back to you, and I know there's probably questions from everybody who's listening in, for Rosa and for others. So Barbara, back to you and to our attendees. So thank you.
Thank you, Atul, and thank you, Kwaku, and thank you, Rosa, so much. This was really helpful, and I'm sure there are questions right now. And so Katie Morgan, our marketing manager, will field your questions. I know there's some that have come in on the chat rooms, and I imagine they've come in other ways as well. So Katie, it's back to you now.
Thank you so much. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the call. We have already been getting several questions through the chat. So I'm going to kick us off with our first one from Peter. With regard to airtime and phone service, have costs changed since the pandemic started? What is the average cost of these services for our clients?
Yeah, so I'll let Kwaku comment specifically on what they're doing in Ghana, but just generally before that, so airtime and has not changed, but the interesting thing is that the mobile network operators, I think, are also understanding this is an unprecedented time, and they have, for certain transactions that they do, waived the fee for very small transactions. And so I think there's an effort on everyone to say, if there's a way that the marginal cost is relatively low, but we can service low-income persons, or we can service and make things sort of happen better during this time. I think we are seeing many parties examining that and at least taking some preliminary steps. In terms of what is the cost of airtime and other things, it varies quite a lot from country to country and varies as a percentage of the spending power, with some of the worst coming in Southern Africa as really just a dramatic portion of disposable incomes. But I think it is important to keep in mind that it is substantially lower. The cost of airtime and things are substantially lower than what you would encounter, for example, in the United States. So if you were to get a new phone number with a SIM card, you could do that under $1 in many countries. You could probably do that for 60 cents. So a brand new number, a basic phone, you can get a new one for about $10. You could get a used one for $2 to $3. So realistically, I think we're seeing the handset cost and the cost of the number as not the barrier. Now, data charges are substantially higher, but in terms of the basic costs of SIM cards and initial minutes just for voice and for text message, it is still a calculation that people have to make, but it is no longer as prohibitive as it used to be. And there's one of the main reason behind that is actually competition, the competition between the providers.
Yes, just to add to what Rosa just said, yes, airtime has not really changed. Unfortunately, Peter, airtime cost is controlled by the telecommunication companies. So they would have to actually make changes to their charges before anybody can. There hasn't been any changes there yet, but if customers are trying to purchase airtime using the digital platforms, that is free for the customer. So just to add that the customer does not have any additional charge to use a digital platform to purchase airtime. And also other transaction types have also received some adjustments in pricing. For instance, like I mentioned earlier on, customers who are transferring money directly into their accounts here at Snappy Aba Savings and Loans has been waived of all charges now. It's totally free for them to do that. Also, customers who are withdrawing from their accounts using the digital platform also have a limit. That is, those who are transacting below 100 cedis. 100 cedis is like $20. 100 cedis have no charge, but if you are transacting beyond $20, there is a little charge on that. So that's what I have to share in terms of the charges.
Well, thank you very much, both of you guys. right, I will move on to our next question. How are clients using digital channels to both purchase supplies and receive payments directly to their accounts? Can you share a bit more about how this works?
Yeah, so basically the service that we've installed at all of our partners that Kwaku was describing that they've installed in Sinapi last year, it allows them to use their phone to access the bank account and then to conduct some transactions. So among things that they can do is a pay merchant facility. So in other words, they can take the money that's in the account and by using a phone-based menu, simply then send it to the account number of the merchant. So this would be no different than using an app that you might use on your phone, except it's a little bit more manual. There's a little bit more keying in of things. And so the ability of this basic function of the remittance of sending money from your own account to someone else, that can be to a relative who lives in a different city. You can send money to someone like that. It can be, again, a merchant for physical goods, or it could be for your loan, for repayment of your loan to the microfinance institution. So it's a basic functionality that's the cornerstone, I think, of the clients using the phone to engage with it as money, is to be able to do this fundamental remittance activity.
Yes, and just to add to what Rosa said, the platform is also integrated with some platforms which are interoperable in the country. So for instance, we are integrated to the mobile money platform that is countrywide. So we can actually move funds to any of the mobile money services in the country. So for instance, I am purchasing supplies from supplier A, who is on this particular mobile money service with X as his account number. I can easily, using my phone, just type his account number and voila, I am off with that purchase. And the same way I can receive a purchase from him also onto my account.
Thank you. That's a really great information. I appreciate your detailed responses. All right, we have another question. This one is from Paul. Are you able to use digital platforms to give clients information about how best to cope with the adverse financial effects of the pandemic for their businesses?
Yeah, so the system that we mentioned, the interactive voice response, or IVR, the reason we keep mentioning it is that's been the most successful information intervention that we've done. So we've tried text messaging, we've tried other things, and they had nowhere near the success of the participation rate. And so the voice, as Kwaku mentioned, it's because we can get it into local dialect. So we do that into 5 dialects. But also we've received training, and our staff locally that do this receive training about how to craft a message. So it's done in a way that, let's say, really good music is done. So there's a hook, there's something you can quickly remember, and it's done in a fairly catchy fashion, and it's staged over a period of time. So we might start a message, let's say if it was around Easter when they did this, they might have sent a message that just simply said, Happy Easter. Just because you want to engage people, you want them to know that you're thinking about them. You can personalize some of these things. So if it's someone's birthday, you could send a message that says, happy birthday. We've used these to create savings journeys for the client. So we encourage them, we start out by saying, have you set savings goals? Do you want to save, say, for a motorbike? Do you want to save maybe for a goat? Or save for your kids' education? Maybe your kids going on to secondary and tertiary education, you want to save for that. And then as they save, you can then send them congratulatory messages. Congratulations, you've made your 3rd installment into a motorbike savings. And so not just a flat message, but kind of more of a nudge based system. And you use behavioral economics to sort of create more and more attractive things. And so those have been the successful ones. We are looking at some of the things that are used by things like health ministries, where you record much longer messages. So far, we've not had success for the longer base message. I think the clients prefer the shorter burst sort of messages. That's when you get the participation rate high, and that's when we're able to get some response. But our other partner in Ghana, Opportunity International Savings and Loans, OISL, They ran a campaign last year, and they accidentally said, we will have training for small business enterprises. And basically everyone that received the message signed up and said, okay, where do I go? We want the training today. and so I think it's, as a methodology, we're going to be expanding on this and seeing how do we integrate that. And absolutely, I think as the restrictions for COVID start to unwind, to see how we can quickly help the clients to adjust and to make sure that they have the most relevant information to get their businesses back online.
You know, Katie, I'll add two more from two different areas of opportunities work responses to that. One is on ag finance, where we serve smallholder farmers across, in fact, Ghana and Sub-Saharan Africa, 5 countries. There, what Tim Strong and his team have done is they've developed videos that then are downloaded to tablets that we have given to farm support agents who are experienced farmers who live in communities. So this is not somebody coming into the village, but these are village people who have long experience in farming, who are acting as coaches to the farmers who are getting loans from us, and the trust groups. They host the trust groups. So they are now teaching farmers both. In fact, I think he's now a second version since COVID of some training videos, both on how to keep their farm business going, how to access markets, and then what do you do about the sales process and so on. But they use these tablet-based training devices to actually teach better farming techniques on an ongoing basis. That's an ag finance. Similar digital use of technology and digital means. In education finance, which many of you are very familiar with, Andrew McCusker and his team have, I'll mention 2 things. One, they developed, they used a Facebook app, Facebook Lite. It's not the full expression, it's a light expression, to develop landing pages and meeting points for educators to learn from each other on how to deal with, for the schools with the crisis itself, how to keep the crisis school going, and for teachers, all right, best practices on how to reach the kids. So they've got very active participation. In fact, it's the first time that they're getting teachers from different countries and educators together. And that led them to then develop a toolkit on how to keep the school going during the crisis, which is being delivered electronically using Facebook Lite and similar means. So I mentioned that because this use of technology and what we call digital financial services is in all 3 areas of opportunities. Work with our clients on microbanking, as Rosa and Kwaku were talking about, ag finance, and in education, all across. It's core, it's very deep in our DNA that we want to use this. Continue improving quality and quantity of services, but at a reduced cost. And it's an ongoing journey. I will not say we are there yet, if we ever get there. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Atul. Okay, so I want to save time to hear from Barbara, but we do have one great question. Rosa, do you mind answering this one? How might the current COVID-19 landscape impact how our digital services look in the future once restrictions are one day lifted?
That's an interesting one. I think it applies not just for digital, but across the board. I think everyone's examining what will happen and what kinds of things might linger. We have a concept that we use within the DFS program called a gateway. And by that is that typically we've observed that if a client conducts one transaction on their own successfully, that they pass through this gateway of knowledge and experience, that they then become very comfortable and acquainted with digital. So hopefully this, having more people sign up, realizing that they need to have access to channels like the ones that have been described and practice with it, means that they might have crossed that gateway. And by gateway, I don't necessarily mean a one-off, because it may take someone who is not experienced several times to try. It may take a couple of weeks, or may take some assistance from another group member or someone else in the family or something like that. But hopefully they will have crossed through that gateway to have done that. So that's one way to look at it. The other way is looking in a broader sense. I think what the whole COVID thing is teaching us is that people are more open to change than I think we might have expected before the beginning. And so the whole digital journey is a process that everyone is going through of massive change. We're seeing it affect every aspect of our lives, but it's also affecting every aspect of our clients' lives. And I think the broad lesson that I'm taking away from this is that we should not underestimate our clients and how they can cope with change. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, that I've been very impressed with their resilience, that in many ways our clients, because they have to deal with such adversity every day, have a massive amount of resilience and capability of dealing with large-scale change.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Rosa. All right, Barbara, I will pass the mic back to you.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate it. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up now, but I'm just excited, as I'm sure you are, to see that our commitment to our clients and their families remains strong. And with people like Rosa and Kwaku working so hard in the fields, we know that's going to continue. You know, as donors, as supporters of opportunity, I just would encourage you to remain strong yourselves, remain connected, both with family, with friends, and with opportunity. Now, the webinar is finished, but we are going to leave the lines open for a few minutes in case any of you wanted to crosstalk with each other, because I know lots of you know each other through our time with opportunity. But thank you for your participation. Go in peace, serve the Lord.